Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. This is a special board meeting of the Cincinnati Metropolitan Housing Authority for Tuesday, March 31st, 2021, being conducted via webcam video and teleconferencing for the purpose of the public hearing for CMHA fiscal year 2021 through 2022 annual plan. The meeting is now called to order. Roll call, Ms. Mitchell.
Present.
Mr. Weedman.
Present.
Mr. Harris.
Present.
And the chair is present. We have a quorum. Agenda item number 3 is the public hearing for the CMHA annual plan for fiscal year 2021-2022. During the comment period required by HUD, CMHA accepted written recommendations from the public on the annual plan. A copy of the summary with the comments and CMHA's responses was sent to the individuals and organizations that submitted comments. A final summary will be posted on the CMHA website on April 17, 2021. At this time, the floor is open for the public hearing on the annual plan. The board will hear comments only about the annual plan for fiscal year 2021-2022 at this time. Members of the public who have joined via video conference and dialed in through the teleconference link who wish to speak, please identify yourself by name, address, and organization, if applicable. And when your name is called, please restate your name and speak directly to the board. So thank you. Are there any, and is there anyone who wishes to address the board? And Mr. Secretary, do we know if anyone has joined the Zoom meeting for that purpose?
We don't know, but we usually keep the meeting open for the 15 minutes in case somebody does show up. I'll just make a comment that we received 2 comments pertaining to the Housing Choice Voucher Program, and we actually took those comments into consideration. Gary sent those out to the board, and we will make changes to our, we're proposing at our next meeting when we present to the board to approve the annual plan, those changes and recommendations will be included. And they were just pertaining to a couple preferences of partnership with Cincinnati Public School for homeless youth, and allowing our Sutterview, as you all know, we just closed and reopened it for the time length for people that moved in to receive a voucher. Those are the only 2 comments we received.
Wonderful. Who is going to be our timekeeper?
I have already started the clock. Would you open the floor, sir? So I've got it running right now.
Okay. Shall we stand down with our audio on?
Yep.
If anyone needs a moment to themselves, I guess you can hear if someone has chosen to address us and rejoin. Otherwise, Gary, we're the 15 minutes is up at what time, please?
We've got about 12 minutes, 12 and a half minutes left.
Okay, very well.
I would ask Elliot, do we show anybody calling in?
There's no one waiting currently.
All right, thank you.
Everyone is in the meeting.
Okay, but like Greg was saying, we want to give anyone an opportunity to come on the call between now and the allotted 15 minutes. So, I think it might be appropriate for us to just be silent until someone comes along. Does anyone have another thought?
No, I think that's what we usually do, Mr. Miles.
Okay. All right. We'll make like Quakers and be silent for a while. I could see the younger people were kind of giving me the fish eye with that. They've never been to a Quaker meeting. The exciting part is when someone speaks out of the silence. Could be about anything.
Mr. Miles, I'll have you know that I frequently, when I was younger, went to Quaker meetings and enjoy the silence. And I, at 39 years old, I count myself as young. And so I absolutely do know about the Quakers and their traditions of silence. And you're exactly right.
Well,
silence, it would be the most exciting part. And you might guess that I usually was the person that broke the silence. So I know it's a shocker to all of you over this time. I know you guys are so surprised that I had something to say, but the silence really did move me.
yeah. Anyone who's not experienced a Quaker meeting, and I'm on this because of our so-called silence, which isn't, I'm not being very silent, but it really is a special thing, isn't it, Reggie?
It absolutely is, yeah.
My hometown of Richmond, Indiana was settled by Quakers. And there was a recording studio called Jeanette. And in the teens and the 1920s, the musicians who were traveling from the Mississippi Delta to include New Orleans to Chicago to work and perform stopped in Richmond, Indiana. And at Gannett Studios, in part because it was a town settled by Quakers, was open to Louis Armstrong, Jelly Roll Morton. They first recorded their music in Little Richmond, Indiana, which at one time was bigger than Chicago.
Wow.
And
Bill, was that what year was that? 1878, 1880?
Yeah, maybe a little earlier, Tom. Well before Mrs. Malone's cow. What was her name? But there were also a lot of bluegrass musicians who traveled from Kentucky to first record in Richmond, Indiana. Hoagie Carmichael first recorded Stardust in Richmond, Indiana. Lawrence Welk and his band recorded there. But there's a story about Louis Armstrong. He played so loudly that he had to go into the room outside where his orchestra was played, so he wouldn't distort the recording. I thought that was cool. So
I don't know much about Quaker. I don't know much about Quaker silence, but I'm Episcopalian, and they do a silent retreat every year. And my grandmother would take me to that silent retreat in Glendale at the Sisters of the Transfiguration, all up until I was like in the 7th grade. I couldn't stand it.
The Episcopal churches are America's version of the Church of England, right?
Right. Yeah.
And their services are very similar to a Catholic mass, aren't they?
They are.
Very, very similar.
Yeah.
Laverne, was that at Bethany School?
Yeah, it's next to Bethany. We went to the church that was there. Yeah, on the grounds.
Yeah. That's a beautiful church.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Our kid, 2 of our 3 boys went to Bethany.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, they're responsible. The sisters opened the school in Lincoln Heights, and we had St. Simon's School up until about the I want to say the late maybe the early 60s.
Wow.
Yeah,
How about that?
yeah.
So I'll share with you. I grew up in Chicago. Chicago has a very rich, strong Black Catholic tradition. So my grandmother was Catholic and she went to Mass in Latin, and I grew up going to Black Catholic churches. And I actually didn't have, and I like my teachers in Catholic school were like Black nuns. And I had my first white teacher when I was in 4th grade, and she was a nun. And she introduced herself and she said, "I'm a nun." And she said something. And I was like, "No, you're not." And she said, "Yes, I am." She was so shocked. I said, "No, you're not." I was like, "Catholic people are Black and you're white." So, and she was like, "Well, Catholic people are Black and they're white and they're also all shaped." And so I was just so confused. I went home with my grandmother and I said, Grandma, my grandmother, yeah. I was like, so I had this new teacher since beginning of 4th grade. You know, like she's a white woman. She says she's a nun and she says she's Catholic. Is that possible?
God.
She was like, "Where did you get this idea?" And I said, we go to Catholic church all the time. I've never seen a white person in church. And then she had a moment where she was like, "Oh, I guess it is your experience." And so then we had a very long talk about the history of Catholicism and the Vatican and all of these things. But, 3rd grade Reggie was just like, "No, Black people are Catholic and we'll have it no other way."
That's fabulous. What a great town, Chicago.
Yeah.
If my father were with us, he would be 106.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
He was 44 when I was born. His 3rd marriage that we know of. And he would tell me stories about growing up in Al Capone, Chicago, and all the establishments that were located around town. But they must have had a lot of fun.
Yeah. My grandmother was born in 1921. Well, she passed away in the early 2000s, but she was born in 1921.
Yeah.
And she was actually, it was interesting she was born in Chicago and her mother was born in Chicago. So she was very proud of the fact that I was a 4th generation Chicagoan. And so she grew up through that era. And then the woman who raised her was a bar owner. And the name of the bar was Dewdrop Inn, which I thought was the best name ever. And so she would just have all of these stories about navigating Bronzeville in the early sort of 1940s, I think this would be. And with, all of the characters that would come in. And yeah, I mean, it was very interesting to have this very personal description of Chicago history, right? A very close perspective of the larger historical things that were happening, particularly through, and this was after the Capone days, but that sort of organized crime space. So yeah.
But we had George Remus. What did Faulkner name him? The Great Gatsby. Anybody know that history? Yeah.
Great Gatsby.
It was said that George Remus was an even bigger bootlegger than Al Capone. He had more judges and senators on his payroll than Capone. And his neighbors, the neighbor kids, loved him in Price Hill, where his home was, because he would open a swimming pool to all the neighborhood kids. Which is fun to think about, being around in those times and being a kid in a neighborhood like that. So, how we doing, Gary? Are we close?
2 minutes and 10 seconds.
Okay, Reggie, back to you.
All right. No, I don't. I don't have anything. Oh no, I do have one story I'll tell though. I can tell in 2 minutes. So we'll go back to Al Capone. My grandmother's sister. So Maddie and Margie. Margie is my grandmother. Maddie was her sister. Maddie was a door-to-door insurance salesman on the south side of Chicago. She was the first Black woman to sell insurance and for Metropolitan Insurance on the south side. And she had this, and so you would go and apparently you would sell insurance, but then you would do home visits to your agents to make sure that they're okay with their insurance, which I thought was like fascinating. So she would like have coffee with all these people. She sold and maintained this relationship with this gentleman. She says they were friends, but you know, the way that my mother tells it, there was a little bit more. He was Al Capone's valet and would tell all of these stories about how they would get the Packards, they would get the men at the Packard plants to create false compartments in the Packard that Al Capone would buy to carry all sorts of things. So that is my Al Capone Chicago connection. Now I get my theatrics from my great aunt Maddie. So I think I would take that story with a grain of salt.
We're listening, Reggie. We're listening.
But that is definitely the story that she told everyone in her family. So.
Perfect. Okay. What, Mary?
Al Capone's back bar is in a bar at the Riverwalk in New Orleans from his house in Chicago.
There you go. Where's the Riverwalk?
This time.
Is that in the quarter?
Right on the river down at the foot of Canal Street.
Oh, wow. Okay, back to business. Are there any other speakers that come before the board pertaining to the annual plan? I'll assume not. Since there are no requests to speak, the floor is now closed. If there's no other business to come before the special board meeting, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. And roll call, Ms. Mitchell.
Aye.
Mr. Weedman.
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. The motion passes, and the annual plan public hearing meeting is adjourned. Now we move on to the instrumentalities contemporaneous board meeting. We're holding this monthly meeting virtually via webcam and teleconferencing on Tuesday, March 30th, 2021, as approved through Ohio's novel coronavirus response bill, which directly affects how local governments throughout the state operate in conducting public business. These sweeping changes were originally approved Thursday, March 27, 2020, and extended until July 1st, 2021 via House Bill 404, approved November 19, 2020. Commissioners, I'd like to acknowledge our General Counsel, Joy Gazaway, on her retirement after 20 years with CMHA. Today will
Congratulations.
Yes.
Wow.
And today will be Joy's last board meeting.
Ah.
And on behalf of the Board of Commissioners, we want to wish Joy luck and say thank you for your years of service that you provided to this organization, the board, and the residents. It is quite a significant achievement. Thank you so much.
Great job, Joy.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all, and it's been a pleasure representing the House and Authority these years, and I look forward to continued success. I have nothing but good thoughts and memories that I'm taking with me. I plan on leaving all the problems behind for my colleagues, but I'll take the our collegial esprit de corps with me into retirement. Thank you so much.
Well, you're most welcome. And, I've heard from all others throughout the community, including judges and others in the courthouse who have the utmost regard for the way you conducted your work on behalf of CMHA and all stakeholders. So thank you, Joy. You're welcome to join in any future Zoom meetings.
Yeah, I thought I just might come to the next public meeting to be part of the public.
We'll be looking for you. So moving on, this is the contemporaneous meeting for instrumentalities that do not have any new business or matters requiring deliberation. The meetings of the following instrumentalities: Laurel Homes 1, Lincoln View Incorporated, Reserve on South Martin, Southwest Ohio Housing Development Incorporated, Cary Crossing Development Corporation, West Union Square Development Corporation, Sutter View Development Corporation, Pinecrest Rad Development Corporation, Park Eden Evanston LLC, Park Eden Apartments Development Corporation, Mariana Terrace Development Corporation, and Bennett Point Development Corporation are hereby called to order. Roll call. Ms. Mitchell.
Present.
Mr. Weedman.
Present.
Mr. Harris.
Present.
The chair is present. We have a quorum. Commissioners, have you reviewed the February 23rd, 2021 minutes for these instrumentalities? And if so, are there any corrections? Hearing none, may I have a motion to thank you? A second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, Ms. Mitchell.
Aye.
Mr. Weedman.
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. The motion passes. There's no new business for these instrumentalities.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. A second? Thank you. Roll call, Ms. Mitchell.
Aye.
Mr. Weedman.
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Okay. And the chair votes aye. The meeting is adjourned. Now we move on to the regular meeting of Touchdown Property Services Incorporated for Tuesday, March 30th, 2021. The meeting is called to order. Roll call, Ms. Mitchell.
Present.
Thank you. Mr. Weedman.
Present.
Mr. Harris.
Present.
And the chair is present. We have a quorum. Item 3 is approval of the minutes. Is there a motion? Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. Any corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, we'll move on to roll call. Ms. Mitchell.
Aye.
Mr. Weedman.
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The motion passes. Item 4 is discussion of recommendations. Resolution number 123, approving the financial report for the month of February 2021 with collection losses. Is there a motion to accept?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions from the board or discussion? Hearing none, roll call. Ms. Mitchell.
Aye.
Mr. Weedman.
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. The resolution passes. Resolution 124 to approve the monthly financial statement for Hamilton County Affordable Housing, Springdale Senior Limited Partnership, doing business as Baldwin Grove, the Reserve on South Martin, Cary Crossing, West Union Square, Sutter View, Evanston, Pinecrest, Park Eden Apartments, City West Retail, and Touchdown Property Services for the 1 month ending February 28, 2021 for calendar year 2021.
Motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Discussion? Hearing none, roll call. Ms. Mitchell.
Aye.
Mr. Weedman.
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The resolution passes. Now, resolution 125, authorizing the CEO of CMHA to negotiate and enter into contracts for solicitation TP21-1002, Rumpke of Ohio Incorporated, in a not to exceed amount of $200,000 per year for maximum 5-year contract for the board approved budget funded by operating supplies.
Motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion?
Yeah, do we? Go ahead, Greg.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a correction. It should say operating funds instead of operating supplies.
Yes, it should. Noted. Is that sufficient, or do we need to have a new? Well,
Motion to approve it. Motion to approve the change.
Second.
okay. And any questions on that motion? Hearing none, roll call. Ms. Mitchell?
Aye.
Mr. Weedman?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
The chair votes aye, the resolution passes. And if there's no other business to come before the board.
Okay, I have one question. Actually,
course.
I thought we were voting on the change and
Right.
not on the
Right.
resolution itself. But the fact that we were voting on the resolution, so I was just curious, have we gone out to, when we go to Rumpke, do we just go to Rumpke, or do we go to CSI, some of the other ones that are, I think there's 2 or 3 people that are collecting trash.
There's 4 that have licenses, franchise
Okay.
licenses with the city. It's Bavarian, but they only do dumpsters, Best Way, Republic, and Rumpke.
Okay,
Best Way is not interested in doing our properties. They do the waste services for campus. Republic, we've tried and we're not getting responses out of them.
okay. All right, good. I will make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
All right. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, roll call. Ms. Mitchell?
Aye.
Mr. Weedman?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
The chair votes aye, the resolution passes. The Touchstone Property Services Incorporated meeting is closed. Now, the regular board meeting of the Cincinnati Metropolitan Housing Authority for Tuesday, March 30th, 2021. The meeting is now called to order. Roll call for attendance. Ms. Mitchell?
Present.
Mr. Weedman?
Present.
Mr. Harris?
Present.
The chair is present. We have a quorum for the meeting. Item 3 is approval of the minutes. Is there a
Motion to approve.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. Any corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, roll call. Ms. Mitchell?
Aye.
Mr. Weedman?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. The motion passes. Item 4 on our agenda is presentations, of which we have 2 presenters this evening. First, we have Ms. Rima Ruber with a Choice Neighborhoods Planning Grant Overview. And so, Rima, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And just 1 second. Okay, can everybody see my presentation? My PowerPoint?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. So good evening, commissioners. I'm going to be doing a Choice Neighborhoods Planning Grants presentation. And since Mr. Harris has already been involved with a Choice Neighborhoods grant, he may jump in and take over anytime he wants. But go ahead and move forward. Okay, so my presentation agenda, I'm going to do a general overview of the grant, Going to move into discussing a little bit about our target neighborhood and our public housing development. Discuss the transformation team, move into the planning process and the schedule, and then end the presentation with the discussion about the assets and investments in the West End. So starting with the grant overview. So as you know, we submitted a grant application in September of 20. We were awarded in December of 20, we were awarded $410,000. We executed all the grant agreements in February of 21. It's a 2-year grant, and the completion date for the grant is March of 23. The Choice Neighborhoods grants have replaced the former Hope 6 grant from 2010. That was the last year we had a Hope 6 grant, and that was the first year we had a Choice Neighborhood grant. The Choice Neighborhoods grant takes the Hope 6 grants to the next level by broadening the properties and activities that the resources can be utilized for. When we submitted the application for 2020, there were 50 applicants and there were 11 awards this year. We had over 35 partners and letters of support at the submission of the grant application. And the Choice Neighborhood Planning Grant, we had over 60% financial leveraging, which equates to about $250,000. And we as well had additional in-kind donations of time and services from our partners. So the Choice Neighborhood is a competitive grant program that allows flexible resources for local leaders to help transform high poverty, distressed neighborhoods into a mixed income neighborhood with affordable housing, safe streets, good schools, what every family needs. It leverages significant public and private dollars to support locally driven strategies through a comprehensive approach to neighborhood transformation. So to accomplish these goals, CMHA and partners must develop and implement a broad and wide-ranging neighborhood revitalization strategy, or what the grant calls a transformation plan. To this end, Choice Neighborhood Planning Grant must focus on 3 core goals, which is housing, people, and neighborhood. The housing goal is to replace or redevelop the housing with quality mixed income units, utilizing different options such as acquisition rehab or new construction or substantial rehab, and so on. The people element is to replace or redevelop housing with quality mixed, the people element is to improve outcomes of households living in target housing related to employment, income, health, and education. The neighborhood section is to create conditions necessary for public and private reinvestment in the neighborhood to offer the kinds of amenities and assets such as safety, good schools, commercial and retail activities that are important to families. Moving on to the discussion on the target neighborhood and the public housing developments involved. So CMHA's Choice Neighborhood Planning Grant was awarded for the neighborhood of the West End. And the public housing developments, which are incorporated into this grant, is the Stanley Road Towers, the row houses, the Liberty Street apartments. They're all within the West End neighborhood. And as you can see from this map, it's this blue colored section that is the West End neighborhood, and the gold or yellow star is the location of our development. So just a brief history of the West End. From the 1920s to 1950, the West End was a thriving center for African-American families and culture. The population in its peak was over 60,000 individuals. Unfortunately, the implementation of the urban renewal program in the 1950s ripped up their neighborhood by demolishing over 400-acre section of the neighborhood, which displaced more than 26,000 families and numerous businesses. Today, the population base is approximately 6,600.
And that was largely to build the interstate highway, Rima, or for some other reasons?
No, that is completely correct. It was to bring in the highway, was the main primary reason. So anyway, this slide represents the public housing sites. That is the core of the planning grant. They're the Stanley Road Towers A and B, which you see up here. Excuse me. Stanley Road Tower A has 207 units, and Stanley Road Tower B has 151 units. Altogether, there are 358 units in the tower. And right up here in the corner, you see the Stanley Road row houses, which is made up of 66 units. And then down here, you see Liberty Street Apartments, which is across from these Stanley Row apartments. It's right here, and it's 130 units. So what we have also is a redevelopment planning process that, again, as I had suggested or stated before, we can use a variety of different options, such as I said, substantial rehab, demolition, new construction, acquisition with rehab or new build, and various other options. There is a HUD requirement for one-for-one replacement housing, which can be on site, within, or close to the target neighborhood. These properties reside on 12.5 acres, and there's approximately another 6 acres. If you see the highway over here on the other side of the highway, which is CMHA's campus and administrative offices, these 6 acres will also be an option for housing to bring the overall total to 18.5 acres that could be available for housing. And so on this slide, as I said, there is 554 apartments, and the Stanley Road Towers, as I stated, are 358 of the 554. The 2 buildings are 13 and 14 story elevator buildings, and the mix is from a efficiency apartment all the way up to a 2-bedroom. The Stanley row houses are 2-story townhomes. There are 66 2-bedrooms. And the Liberty Street Apartments, there is 130 family apartments. They're 3-story walk-ups, and their bedroom mixes go from 1 bedroom all the way up to 5 bedrooms. So quarter of the tenants that live at these developments are 55 and over, and 40% of the tenants are kids under the age of 18. 95% of the tenants are considered extremely low income, and the average income of these developments is approximately $8,400 annually.
Can you go back to that slide? I want to see the income numbers for a few more seconds.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sure. So I'm moving on to the discussion of our transformation team. So the lead grantee is CMHA. We are the grant administrators and the main contact with HUD. We have a planning coordinator, which is the Community Business Institute, who will lead all the planning efforts for housing, neighborhood, and people groups. Then we have our neighborhood anchor institution, which is Seven Hills Neighborhood House. It's the West End Community Development Corporation. It was founded in 1961. And we will be using, their site for some focus groups and workshops, and they'll hold some of the information on choice neighborhoods for the community. Then the planning team will also include community ambassadors who will be selected from these housing developments. There'll be 4 adults and 4 youth who will help communications with the residents. There are also 3 task forces that are going to be set up to lead the planning efforts in the core areas of housing, neighborhood, and people. The housing group is going to be led by CMHA, our Director of Development, Gary Barrett. The neighborhood group is going to be led by the LIF, their Executive Director, Kristen Baker. And the People Task Force is going to be led by the Seven Hills Neighborhood House, their Director of Community Engagement, Tia Brown. We have also established here in the corner, as you can see, a Choice Advisory Council, which is going to be co-led by CMHA's very own CEO, Gregory Johnson, and the City of Cincinnati's Assistant City Manager. The Advisory Council provides oversight and decision-making function for the team. CMHA has assembled over 50 public and private partners to participate in the various task groups, with the residents being involved in all 3 groups and being well represented in the Advisory Council also. moving on to our planning process and our scheduling. So as I said previously, our grant was awarded in December of 2020. We began planning in January of 21. And as I've stated before, the grant has to be completed by March of 23. In February, we had a choice advisory and task force leadership meeting. And then we also had a 3-day HUD kickoff meeting through Zoom and a virtual tour utilizing drone footage of the development and the neighborhood. In March, we had a resident leadership meeting and multiple general resident meetings. We also had a Choice Neighborhood All Task Force kickoff meeting in which CMHA and all the partners participated. We also submitted our grant budget and our schedule to HUD in March, and it's currently being reviewed by them. In April and the months moving forward, the task force and resident meetings will continue. During the spring and summer, we're going to be conducting resident needs assessments. We'll also be doing site due diligence. We are going to be procuring and starting to work with a master design planning firm. And we'll also be doing a neighborhood inventory and some early initiatives. In December of 21, we will be submitting an outline of our transformation plan to HUD. In June of 22, we have to submit a draft transformation plan. And by December of 22, we have to submit our final transformation plan. Community engagement. CMHA will continue its commitment to transparency and resident engagement through the challenging times of the COVID-19 pandemic. While it really does limit our ability to have face-to-face meetings, we will be delivering information to each resident's door or using mail. We will also be hosting multiple conference calls and Zoom meetings using site-based information centers set up in buildings. We'll also use dedicated email addresses, Choice Neighborhoods website, our Facebook, and email blast. We will ensure that information is accessible for all individuals. Our task groups will be leading topic-focused charrettes to gather information in an interactive and creative manner. Our neighborhood task force will lead identification and updating of neighborhood characteristics and assets by conducting surveys and asset mapping. They'll also collect data from the various city departments and Cincinnati Metro. All outcomes will be shared during resident and community meetings to help us better understand what the results mean. Moving on to our last topic is our neighborhood assets and investments. As you can see from this slide here, the West End has all the necessary ingredients to create a community and resident-driven transformation plan. We have over 50 committed partners. We have baseline data sets from previous planning efforts. We have integrated planning process established by including leaders that live and work in the neighborhood. We have neighborhood assets to build upon, such as the schools, the youth and community centers, health centers, art gallery, library, business and workforce development, such as West End Business Alliance, Mortar, as well as parks and recreation. There's also economic investments that will benefit the West End community. At the time of our application submission, there was $294 million worth of investments identified. And the investments were items such as the $200 million FC Stadium, $10 million investment to build the new CPS Stargell Stadium, $300,000 for the historic stabilization of the Regal Theater, $7.4 million in the infrastructure, street and safety improvements that began in April of 2020 by the city, close to $22 million worth of renovations to their Herbley School meant for housing, and many other projects. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions from board members?
I don't have any questions. Excellent presentation. Can you send that to us, Rima?
I'm happy to. I will forward it to Mr. Thompson.
Yeah, the electronic version would be great.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
No,
Thank you.
it's super exciting, and I think that it'll be. I'll say this, and then I'm gonna run away with all of the attention to FC Cincinnati and the stadium. That this is a very positive for the application because of the number, because of the amount of investment we'll be able to count in the footprint and how much that investment will go. I mean, it'll go a really long way. So that is really bodes well for our grant, and then with the implementation grant. So that's exciting.
I just want to make one comment as Rima was going through that. If the board notices that in every other slide, Rima mentioned who was going to be part of every committee, and that's the residents. So this will be heavy resident-driven process, and we chose on purpose 2 partners that have come to our board meetings in the past to talk about some of the decisions we were making. So on purpose, we chose the community partners that were right there in the community. And so far, it's been going pretty good on both sides of the communication. So we're in for a lot of work, but in a little bumpy ride, because a week ago I gave a presentation to FC. I was requested to do that because of the proposed or the perception of displacement. So that process went pretty good, but we're making sure that we keep the residents out front as far as decision making as we go through this process. But I would agree, it's when we get through this, it'll be really good, and it'll be neat for the community, but it'll be monumental for the housing authority and everyone that's on this call that's putting all the work in to get it done.
Good. All right. Any other comments? If not, we'll next hear from Ms. Mary Kosick with an asset management services update. Mary, the floor is yours.
Hi, everybody. Thank you guys for letting me do this.
Hi.
Hi.
I just had a vision that I did this whole presentation on mute, and Mr. made me do it again. So I'm kind of nervous, but this will do good. Okay. My presentation. As asset management services, it's next slide. I have several umbrellas that go under my department, which is family self-sufficiency, relocation, compliance, Envision Rock Centers, Connect Homes USA, and Kramer and Associates. And the first one next is family self-sufficiency. Next is you all aware, or this is a grant funded program. For this calendar year, we received $652, and this pays for the salaries of our staff. Currently, we're all doing remote, working remotely. So during this time, from July to March 2021, we have done 279 annual recertifications, 139 interim recertifications. Next.
Mary,
Yes.
Let's see, do we have a budget to have more participants at this moment?
Yes, we do. Yes.
Okay.
Are
you going to get to that? I don't want to get you out of order.
Yeah, a little bit. But during COVID-19, we've had, our participants has had a lot of change in their income with being laid off and things. So our enrollment has been down, but we're going to continue and ramp up the next part of the fiscal year. Mm-hmm. So currently we have 364 participants on the HCB FSS program, and we have 17 residents who are participants in our FSS program on the asset management side. We've had 27 new enrollments. We've had 10 escrow disbursements. 10 people have graduated off the program. And we've had actually 1 home ownership closing during this time. Next. I also have the relocation department. We do all the relocation within the agency. The first is RAD relocation. And this time period only covers July through current, because Centerview, most of the moves were already previously done. So during this time, we've had 45 moves and at Centerview, which is closed now. Evanston, we had 49 moves, which is also closed. And Pinecrest, we've had 169 moves, and Pargaten, we've had 46 moves. We have completed check requests for 337 residents to receive moving expenses. Notices delivered, which includes a monthly newsletter that we have for our RAD relocation, and we also included some construction information. So we're making sure that our residents we're communicating with our residents at least on a monthly basis, if not more. So during this time at Centerview, we delivered 500 notices and newsletters. Evanston, we delivered 716. Pinecrest, we delivered 1,200. And Parking, we delivered 904. Next slide. The upcoming RAD relocation, we haven't received the RAD RCC yet, but we've been delivering 90-day and 30-day notices to Mariana Terrace, which is 350. We delivered 96 notices to Horizon Hills. Beechwood, we delivered 450. Riverview, 525, and San Marco, 270. And that's
RCC is relocation, perhaps?
It's the RAD conversion commitment.
Okay.
Okay. And that's a picture of our monthly newsletter. We try to tell our residents again about all the moves, and we included construction and development in that newsletter as well. Next, internal transfers. We've had category 1, we've had 62. Emergencies, we've had 60. Occupancies, we've had 70. Reasonable accommodations, we've had 43. And other, we've had 38 moves, in addition to the RAD relocation moves. Next is just some of the pictures of some of the units, which you can see some of them are new rehab units. And those are the movers that move our residents. Next. Compliance. We developed a compliance team that audits internally. And during this time, we've conducted 1,090 audits within the agency. And as a result of that 1,090 audits, we have developed an additional 5 SOPs. So we can improve our making sure that we're in compliance within all departments. We've also done 82 grievance hearings. That's on both sides of the program. And that could be their voucher was terminated, they were denied housing, or they had some rental, rent issues on the property management side. So those are, and everyone's entitled to a grievance hearing. Next, compliance. They conducted 34 trainings on various subjects, including income and assets, file submissions, and compliance. And this was all to our staff at various Zoom meetings. So they've been really busy. Next, the Envision Rock Center. This is a little pet project. I really enjoy doing a lot for this. The Envision Center's mission is to centralize hubs that provide residents resources and support needed so that our residents can excel. Next, before we got the HUD Envision designation, we had the Resource Opportunity Center, which we developed. Mr. Johnson, Marquita, they all worked with the residents trying to garner what they wanted out there, the services that they wanted out there in the community. So it was a long process before we received the HUD designation on August 12th, 2019. So there was a lot of work put into that prior to that. But in order to be an Envision Center, you have to meet the 4 pillars. And that is economic empowerment, education advancement, next slide, health and wellness, character, and leadership. And Of all those pillars, we have social service providers that can provide those support services to our residents. And we continue to get more partnerships. It's been a little slow during COVID. Mind you, we keep constant contact with them. We have Zoom meetings with our service providers. Hey, what are you guys doing? Making sure that our residents know that you guys are still there, and we're providing that information to our residents so they are not alone out there. Okay, next. Because of the COVID, we closed the doors in the Envision Center March 14th, 2020. Our outreach coordinators that work with the Envision Center, they are doing, they're making phone calls to the residents of Winton Terrace and Finlater Gardens, letting them know that we're still here, we're still operating a little bit differently. We're still providing referrals to our social services. If they have an issue, we're trying to direct them to those services. So we're not alone. So they're not alone, and we're not alone as well. We've also provided over 50 flyers of whether it's what the service providers are currently, how are they currently doing business, to COVID information. We're giving out employment information. And these are some of the things. Summer crisis programs, Social Security. We gave information about voting registration, transportation to get to the voting polls. So there's a lot of information that we continuously try to get out to our residents. Next. And in February, IT installed 3 computers for each of our Envision centers. They also have scanning and printing capabilities. In January, the Trauma Center, which is associated with Seven Hills, wanted to come back to help our residents, thought that it was a good idea to try and take some small steps. So they did 2 small groups, less than 6 individuals, and they've had 6 Zoom meetings so far. But the big boost that we've had so far is Jobs and Family Services returned to the Envision Center on March 9th. As I'm going to show you, our numbers are starting to increase. Next. Pre-COVID-19, as you can see, we were really on we were just full steam ahead. We had 21,687 knocks and visits to our residents. There's not one visit. We kept continuously going back with additional information for our residents. We provided 532 referrals, scheduled appointments 106, walk-ins 689. That should say post-COVID. Right now, we are only doing phone calls and making the referrals, and we've done 7,531 phone calls and 1,499 referrals. Next, as you can see, September 2020, we were just down to the phone calls. We did 872. Referrals were 148. But then you jump down to March when Jobs and Family Services came back. We've been doing 1,605 calls. We did 205 referrals. Scheduled appointments, we had 168. That is such an increase. Zoom calls, we've had 7, and 138 individuals walked into the office trying to make appointments, meeting with Jobs and Family Services. So I think we're off to a good start, and we're only going to get better with the next quarter. Next, here's some of the events that we've had. You know, we miss our barbecues, but we just don't want to do those until it's safe. We've had pop-up violence intervention prevention with COA and Urbanly. We've had winter coat distribution with CareSource, COVID-19 testing and immunization, and food giveaways with Inspirational Bible Church. So we're still there, but it's just a little bit different. Next, asset management, Connect Homes USA. The mission of Connect Homes is public-private collaboration to narrow the digital divide for families and school-aged children who live in HUD-assisted housing. Next, CMHA submitted an application to become part of the Connect Homes USA and received approval in 2019. So CMHA decided to do an RFP to provide Wi-Fi to 5 family communities using CARES Act funding provided to the housing authorities. The properties include Mariana Terrace, Seti Coons, Ralph Street, Horizon Hills, and Beacon Glen. we got the bids back and the cost was so high that we had to change the scope and eliminate Horizon Hills and Beacon Glen for now, I say. So next, we're going to move forward with Mariana Terrace, Seti Coon, and Rouse Street, and we're going to provide 143 families with free Wi-Fi for 5 years. And once that 5 years is up, Cincinnati Bell is committed to looking for grants so we can continue this service free to the residents or little to no cost. As I just stated, Cincinnati Bell won the contract. We've had a kickoff meeting. They've done their site walkthroughs. They finalized the fiber optic plan. They're pulling their permits, and we're implementing Mariana Terrace and then Seti Coons and Ralph Street. And this is all going to be completed by August 2021. So this is great. We're notifying the residents that hey, you guys are going to get this. So this is a great in combination with the RAD project and Mariana Terrace. So it's a win for both of us. Kramer and Associates is another project that we took on, trying to inform our residents about COVID-19, and we paid for this through the CARES Act. What they have done is gone out into the community, and they've reached out to over 60% of CMHA's residents, letting them know about the COVID, letting them know about the services, trying to help them get any kind of services that they need so that they are not feeling left alone, whether it's free store food bank or whether it's just information about COVID, they're there to help. So they've really been out there in the community. Next, they've been at the Beechwood holding educational on COVID, Corona Health Fair at Riverview. They've been to Baldwin Grove. They've been to Stanley Row. They've been to Marquette Manor, and they've also been to sit-in units. And they've had door-to-door educational blitz. They're actually really committed to doing this project and doing it well. So we've had great responses, and they have let the individuals, our residents, know about any COVID vaccinations that are happening with UC Health, also Tri-Health. So they've been really informing all of our residents of what is out there for their benefits. And the last one is questions. And I was so thorough that I don't think I'll have any questions. Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Hey, Mary, that was a great presentation. Can we get that electronically sent to us as well?
Yes, you may, with a small fee. No, I'm just kidding.
There was conversation this week, particularly about the cities, how they may choose to spend COVID CARES Act funds or the most recent funds from Washington. There seemed to be some question about which of those expenditures or what expenditures would be eligible for COVID funds. We don't have that concern with the funds we've received and how we've allocated them, do we? We're not going to have that revisited, are we?
No, we understand the rules on both sides of the house, and we've chosen to make sure we're spending our funds on everything that is COVID related. So as Mary was speaking about this last vendor that we hired, all of that was COVID related, checking on people about getting tested, going door to door, sending information out. Now it's on vaccination. And on the housing choice voucher side, what we did was try to get families housed and try to get landlords to house families by offering them an incentive pay. And so all of those items, and we've done more. Mary didn't go over the community policing that we done at Winton Terrace. So we partner with Urban League to do their community policing program there. It's just getting started. And then obviously buying PPE and buying computers and laptops for staff to work remotely. All of that is COVID related. So we won't have that problem when we get audited on what we spent the funds on. I will say, though, that I'm very upset that the city came out with their stimulus of $290 million, and we've submitted them a plan for $1 million a year to help us with our transformation. And we did not get any consideration out of $290 million of just $1 million in assistance as we go through our $1 billion transformation. I think Mr. Miles is frozen.
I think so as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you
Okay.
go.
There you go.
There we go.
Okay. Well, you know, it's a relief to hear your answer about how you allocated the funds that came to CMHA. I share your disappointment in the city's not recognizing the leverage that CMHA offers on top of each dollar that they may choose to spend through their own silos. And I hope that's not the end of the conversation. If I know you, Greg, it won't be, right?
Well, we're still asking the question, but yeah, we're still asking the question. We're still asking the question. And the county, I did a presentation a couple weeks ago at the county, and the county is putting together a plan for affordable housing. And so they actually set aside, I believe, $1 million to work on a plan. And I know the county administrator is working on submitting recommendations to the county commissioners. And after I gave a presentation and talked to him about it, and I believe we're going to be favorable in that recommendation as we go forward.
Great. Yeah, it just seems that with the breadth and depth of your staff, it's hard to imagine that anyone in Hamilton County, including the city and the county, can do with a dollar what you can. And it seems unfortunate that they might duplicate staff. They may not realize economies of scale, that working with you would bring to the objectives. So, I invite any other board members to ask any other questions regarding Mary's presentation. Any other thoughts or questions?
I just have one comment, Mr. Miles. You asked, I think when Mary was giving her numbers on recertification, actually we have over 400 people in that program. So we're actually trying to ramp it up and add more, as Mary said. But today we have a really, really healthy program, which is for 434 people. And we do that for just over $300,000, which is really good for that many people. And these residents are in this program for 5 years. So we have a healthy program. I like to push it up towards the 600 mark. So, but you know me, I like to push my luck a little bit. So, but
Here.
yeah.
And, when we had this conversation 2 or 3 years ago, it's grown exponentially in terms of that 400 number plus 400 plus today. So, but it's just a wonderful barometer of self-sufficiency being achieved. And so, any other questions?
And the last thing that I want to add to it is that as the board well knows, we worked on our mission a few years ago with that partnership. And as you can see with Rima's presentation and Mary's presentation, we've leveraged, with Mary's presentation, we leveraged over 40 community partners. So we haven't recreated the wheel, we just leveraged and open our doors with partnerships. And as Rima said, over 30 partnerships that we've leveraged. And just between those two, we're almost at 100 partnerships. We're just leveraging, and it doesn't cost us anything but conversation and opening our doors. So I just wanted to make sure that, because I think that is right in our mission, but it's huge because, and that's not even counting the partnerships that we've leveraged through the Housing Choice Voucher Program. So that means that what we're bringing additional services to our residents and not recreating the wheel, we're just trying to manage the process that were not here before and not spending any additional dollars out of our coffers.
That's excellent.
I've been on the board long enough to remember when CMHA did have people on staff who, as you're reminding us today, we've found partners in the community, which is more appropriate and a better way of avoiding mission drift for housing agency. Okay, so Mary, Rima, thank you so much for those big presentations.
Great presentation.
Yeah. And now we move on to public comments. And we have no requests to speak this month. Item 6 is discussion of secretary recommendations, the financial report, resolution 5515, approving the bad debt write-offs for February 2021. Is there a motion to accept? Thank you. A second? Thank you. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, roll call, Ms. Mitchell.
Aye.
Mr. Weedman.
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
The chair votes aye, the resolution passes. Resolution 5516, to approve fiscal year 2021 February financial statements for the Cincinnati Metropolitan Housing Authority.
Motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, roll call, Ms. Mitchell.
Aye.
Mr. Weedman.
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, the resolution passes. Item 6B is request for approval to solicit bids for the following items. Resolution 5517, providing authorization to proceed with the request for proposals and solicitations for general goods and services from outside vendors. Solicitation 2021-4005, architectural services for Logan Commons and Northside Scholar House. Solicitation 2021-5003, printers, scanners, multifunction devices. Is there a motion to accept?
Motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, roll call, Ms. Mitchell.
Aye.
Mr. Weedman.
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
The chair votes aye, the resolutions pass. Item 6C is resolutions to award contract renewals. Resolution 5518, authorizing the CEO of CMHA to sign a third one-year contract extension option for contract 2018-7003, year-end and pre-audit readiness services with Rubino and Company, chartered in a not-to-exceed amount of $40,000 annually for a maximum 5-year contract paid for by management services funds.
Motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, roll call, Ms. Mitchell.
Aye.
Mr. Weedman.
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, the resolution passes. Now, Resolution 5519, authorizing the CEO of CMHA to sign a one-year contract extension option for contract 2019-7003 for general legal services with Adam Stepner, Walterman and Dusing, PLLC, Bricker and Eckler, LLP, Coors and Bassett, LLC, Dressman Benzinger Lavelle, PSC, Fenney Law Firm, LLC, Graydon Head and Ritchie, LLP, Heiss and Winstrip Company, LPA, Manley Burke, a legal professional organization, Rendigs Fry, Kiley and Dennis, LLP, Strauss Troy Company, LPA, Wood and Lamping, on an as-needed basis not to exceed $200,000 per firm annually for a maximum 5-year contract and not to exceed the budgeted amount paid for by operational funds, administrative fees, management services funds, and development funds.
Motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, roll call. Ms. Mitchell?
Aye.
Mr. Weedman?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
The chair votes aye, the resolution passes. Now, Resolution 5520, authorizing the CEO of CMHA to sign a one-year contract extension option for contract 2018-3009-01. Public Housing Conversion Consultant with TRW Consultants Incorporated, CSG Advisor Incorporated, CVR Associates Incorporated, Dominion Environmental Group Incorporated, doing business as Dominion Due Diligence Group, Hawkins, Delafield and Wood, LLC, and Recap Advisors, and not to exceed amounts of $200,000 annually for maximum 5-year contracts paid for by management services funds, capital grant funds, and development funds.
Motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, roll call. Ms. Mitchell.
Aye.
Mr. Weedman.
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, the resolution passes. Resolution 5521, authorizing the CEO of CMHA to sign the second one-year contract extension option for contract 2019-5001 healthcare brokerage services with Haran Associates Incorporated in a not to exceed amount of $50,000 annually for a maximum 5-year contract paid for by management services funds.
Motion.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, roll call. Ms. Mitchell?
Aye.
Mr. Weedman?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, the resolution passes. Item 6D is adopt a resolution to award the following construction contracts. We don't have any construction contracts this month, over $100,000 per resolution 5442 approved August 25th, 2020. The CEO has authorization to sign contracts in an amount not to exceed $100,000. In February, there were 5 contracts at $100,000 or below, with total expense of $361,000. Item 6E is adopt a resolution general, resolution number 5522, authorizing the CEO of CMHA to negotiate and enter into a contract for solicitation 2021-1003 waste collection services with Rumpke of Ohio Incorporated and a not to exceed amount of $1 million for a maximum 5-year contract or the board approved budget funded by operational funds. We have a request to amend the amount of this resolution to $940,000. Is there a motion to amend?
Motion.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Okay.
So we're actually, just for clarification, we're actually, we're not to exceed amount is now 940,000 versus 1 million. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And that is cumulative over a 5-year period, correct?
That's for 1 year.
That's it. Yeah, right.
Last year we spent 929,000.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So
A lot of money on trash.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
I'm forgetting the term, but staff sometimes themselves or with an outside consultant, before an RFP, they get what is expected to be an amount to earn the bid.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt that they did due diligence in terms of getting the.
No, Reggie, I'm kind of extending the comments so far.
Yeah.
Right.
What did staff approximate the cost of the contract?
Janelle, he's talking about when you did your ICE, independent cost estimate.
Yeah, independent cost estimate, and I do not have that with me. What we did for the ice was we looked at all the individual costs, like how much for the cart, how much for a 4 cubic yard dumpster, how much for a 6 cubic yard dumpster, instead of the cumulative. I don't think the prices went up that much.
But you did have, as you said, what we spent the previous year, and then if there was any units that we had to add to it because we brought units on or take off. So the cost that we're estimating it to be is somewhere in the neighborhood of 930,000, between 920 and 30,000. And so that's why we reduced our $1 million ask. Sure. So when Janelle did her ICE, she based it on what we've spent before. And Tom, when you asked that original question, that's why she was all over it and knew, because we were desperately trying to get other organizations to bid on this to get some competitive pricing. And we used to have Best Way, but they just quit because they're from Kentucky. And they just didn't find it cost effective to haul the trash up and down the highway.
Yeah.
So, and on top of that, if you guys remember, the city of Cincinnati passed a ordinance that they would only pick up trash. This ordinance was directly directed at CMHA. So, it included our 4 units where they're saying they would only pick up certain size units. So this actually caused us to go into the trash business more than we would ever need to or want to in just our budget. So really last year and this year are our first years of really realizing a full year of the expenses. And then obviously the trash cost is going up because we do a lot of trash outs and we do a lot of dumps, and we dump when we trash out units and things like that. So our cost in this area is going north instead of south.
I'd also say, you asked before about what companies could do the trash, and there's just the 4 of them that have the franchise. When we pay them, there's an extra 25% franchise on their gross proceeds that go to the city.
Yeah. No, I mean, I would just say from my perspective, it's, I don't do operations of a large scale housing authority. So sometimes I hear these numbers and they just sound huge. And obviously when I think about it for 2 more seconds, it makes sense. And it was very clear that you did your due diligence on this. But
it's a big line item in our budget. And it's gratifying to hear what you're sharing that was beyond in our board books. What is the Best Buy satellite facility just over the line in Indiana in Greendale? Are you familiar with that?
Best Way?
I think it's a Best Way, sorry.
Yeah, I live in Kentucky, so that's who I can use. They will service the campus, but they don't want to do the residential in Ohio.
Yeah. And did I understand correctly that somehow they have to add a surcharge to deliver to the city?
25%. If any of our properties are in the city, then whatever Rumpke charges, they have to add 25%. That extra 25% goes to the city.
Are we the only
And
ones?
the city stopped picking up our trash.
Yeah.
Right.
why the hell isn't the city
That's what's
picking up our trash?
unfair.
Yeah.
That's unfair. That's unconscionable. This is crazy.
Well, I share your reaction, Laverne. I think I'm hearing it in Tom and Reggie too, not to be unreasonable, but is this the end of this? Or do we have some opportunity to bring a more equitable arrangement? Maybe I'm missing what you're trying to share with us, Greg, in terms of why the city justifies this.
Reduce their costs, and then as you hear Janelle saying, they reduce their costs, and then they got a payback, a premium on the backside, because when companies pick it up, they have to pay additional premium. We're not the only one, so if they came to pick up somebody else's, it'll be a 25% on top of that also.
Greg, when
But
you say somebody else's, what do you mean? Are you talking about corporations?
yes, yeah. But
everybody's paying it.
But we're the largest landlord in the city of Cincinnati, because of most of them, they pass on that fee to their renters, right?
Right.
We don't. We have to eat it.
Mm-hmm. But what about commercial sites that have offices and they're dumping paper and other similar disposables to what a household
they pass on that cost to the renters of those commercial spaces. I mean, I think that, hearing you, Mr. Miles, to the larger point about this moving forward, I think that, in the city of Cincinnati, there are lots of conversations about affordable housing and how do we provide it and what do we do. And Greg and I have had this conversation. I think that as we look to next administrations, and even with some of our current county administrations, we're going to begin to turn the corner in recognizing the importance of CMHA in this conversation, and then be able to have the relationships that we need to have conversations about things like this, to request exemptions and things for for an organization like CMHA because of the service that we provide. So that's where I see long term, is when we're moving into these next, few years, where we'll be able to go.
Well, great. I'm just wondering if among all the users who are in CMHA's category were to talk to one another, and I'm including commercial uses, not simply limiting it to residential uses. I wonder what all of us together could provide this service for. Now, don't. I realize what I just said. I just put us in the trash business, but maybe there's a pool that could be formed, and there might be some vendor who might bite on that.
It's no different than electric and gas aggregation. I mean,
exactly.
In fact, we are looking in Sycamore Township. I can tell you, we're looking at putting an aggregation program in for trash, because we think that we might have some advantage. And I believe Colerain may have already done that. But the interesting thing that, Greg, are you telling me that when the city of Cincinnati goes and picks up Joe Smith's house, picks up their trash, and then when we have a house next to Joe Smith, are you saying that they don't pick that trash up, or they do?
They don't. And Janelle, correct me if I'm wrong, they only pick up a 2-family or less.
Okay.
No, you got it right. We have to provide for our properties and pick up the cans, the green cans and all of that. So we had to rush I think because it happened in the middle of a year for us, we actually had to rush and get cans because, you know, the city had city cans and all of that.
Right.
We had to rush and get cans from, it was Best Way because they gave us a really good rate to get the business. And then Best Way, they just didn't have the manpower. Their trucks kept breaking down on the highway and they just said it wasn't worth it. And we didn't, that happened like overnight. So we woke up one day and they were like, we're not coming back. So, and then it took them forever to come and get their trash cans. So we had to scramble to get it. You know, and Janelle and Marquita them did a really good job of making sure that we stayed consistent in getting our trash picked up. So through this whole process, and it's, what has it been, 4 years, Janelle, now? Three or 4 years.
Just looking it up really quick. It looks like it started in 2013, 2014. The problem is that franchise tax that's up to 25% now, that's just skyrocketed the last couple of years. It wasn't that high. It was one thing that we had to start paying to get the garbage, but then the tax makes it worse.
So who decided on the franchise tax? Was that city council? They actually, okay.
So is,
you know when that happened?
The 25%, I can look for it and send it to Mr. Johnson to send to you. I can work with Jerry if you want us to pull the ordinances for you to see.
I tell you what we could do. So Jerry, can you pull the ordinance and then pull the ordinance apart and break it down for us? And then I'll send it back out to the board on exactly when it started and the particulars, because it's particular if you read through it, because I know when Joy first pulled it down, it looks like it was built for us. You know, I could be wrong, but I'll give it to you guys and let you guys look at it and see what you think.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to see it.
yeah.
Okay.
You know, if there's some opportunity in aggregation for this service with local governments, maybe, you know, Rumpke might see some economies of scale. Whoever the vendor ends up being, it just seems like, okay, so it's a 25% franchise tax. What's to keep them from coming back at us again?
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, the only other downside is when you look at an aggregation program, then you going back to what Janelle said, you need competitors and participants, and if you don't have them, then the one guy is going to take advantage of you for sure.
Yeah.
So that's the real challenge in trash. So when a community like Sycamore Township, where there are a lot of individual homes, when a community like Sycamore Township does that, we're more apt to potentially get CSI or possibly Republic or somebody like that to come and say, we'll give you 1 can for trash and 1 can for recycling, and that's it. Everything's got to be in the can, blah, blah, blah. And so we're more apt to have the ability to do that. But when you are looking at something as big as CMHA, they're probably saying, you know, just like Best Way says, it doesn't pay for us to do this. So that's the challenge I think we have from bigger isn't always better, I guess is my point.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is. Certainly it is in electricity and gas, but sometimes it's not always better. Bigger isn't always better.
So how many local jurisdictions are have their own employees picking up residential cans, garbage? Do you think, Tom, in Hamilton County?
You know, I'm not sure. I know Glendale does. I know Cincinnati does. Laverne, I don't know. Do you know anybody else? I can't think of anybody.
Lachlan does.
Lachlan does? Okay.
We can get information on that to you too. I think we've gone through a lot of the jurisdictions they have their contracts with different companies. So those we pull out of the solicitation.
Yeah, but he was talking, Janelle, he's talking about who employs their own staff to do it versus contracted.
Yeah.
And we could approach those jurisdictions and say, you know, we're spending what we're spending. Is any of our business interesting to your jurisdiction?
I guess the thing that really aggravates me is you listen to these people on city council talking about how we need to have more public housing, low income housing or affordable housing. And then you get stuck in the backside for $250,000 just to pick up trash. I think,
Right.
pardon my expression, but that is really bullshit. I mean, I'm sorry. That is really that's really not right. And I think we should probably try to pursue this in some way. With, have you talked to Cranley about this at all, Greg?
No.
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 I wonder. Perhaps in all this conversation is something to continue chatting about. And my suspicion is that when they implemented this tax, affordable housing was not the popular subject that it is today. And they are just desperately looking for money. But Tom, it's an undeniable point, who is the best partner the city could have when it comes to providing affordable housing and the capacity to add to it. I wonder if there are other voices that could go to someone like the mayor, or to whom it would be someone who would be open to receiving this message, so that it's not Greg.
We probably should talk about this offline.
Okay.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah. All right.
Greg, if you can just get us the ordinances, that'd be great.
Okay.
Okay. So let's see. On resolution 5522, we have a motion and a second, right?
Yep. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Roll call. Ms. Mitchell.
Aye.
Mr. Weedman.
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The resolution passes. Now the board will go into executive session to review staffing and real estate. Is there a motion to accept?
Motion.
Thank you. A second. Thank you.
Second.
Roll call. Ms. Mitchell.
Aye.
Mr. Weedman.
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The motion passes.
Hey, Greg, I'm assuming that we don't need the rest of the staff to stick around, correct?
No, but we need to make sure Mr. Miles reads the last statement there, Mr. Miles, the last bullet point there.
Yeah. There will be no vote during the executive session. All other attendees may be excused from the meeting.
Okay.
So we are now in executive session.
Thank you, everybody. I think we're going to move to executive session
room.
Different room, I believe, aren't we?
Right.
Correct.
Yeah. So can we have just some instruction on what you want us to do? Do we need to?
You just stay there, and I'm going to invite you momentarily. Just stand by.
Okay, very well.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Bill, he's actually going to send us a different a link to go into a different room, a different session.
Yes, there it is.
Okay. Click join.
Correct.
There we go.
Okay.
Gary, are you sleeping over there?
He is. No, Gary is probably writing the agenda out for the next 6 years.
Exactly.
With reminders and text reminders.
Right, right. And you have to go through and find them, right?
Awesome.
Okay, so we're back in the boardroom virtually, and may I have a motion to come out of executive session?
Motion.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, Ms. Mitchell,
Aye.
Mr. Weedman,
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
The chair votes aye, the motion passes.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, Ms. Mitchell,
Aye.
Mr. Weedman,
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
The chair, votes aye, the motion passes. The regular board meeting is adjourned.
I just want everybody to get on the TV and start rooting for Michigan. Right, Greg?
Oh, okay, I'm leaving.
I wanted to tell you guys, I don't know if I remember if I told you guys collectively, but thank you so much. You guys helped chime in on my son winning that award.
Yeah.
But he actually got a big award. He got a scholarship. So we celebrated that last month. So I just wanted to tell you guys thank you.
So where did he get his scholarship to?
He got a scholarship to Goshen College in Goshen, Indiana.
Okay.
So he got a full ride, academic and athletics. So
Wow, that's
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
we're happy about that.
That is
So-
really
Not
great.
surprised growing
He's
up
in
in the Johnson household. So
So we're really happy about that. So thank you
Congratulations,
guys for
Bob.
your vote. So
Congratulations.
He is in the right state for basketball because
Well, yeah.
the males come out of the womb with it.
That's
all right,
great.
I have to run.
All
Take
right.
care.
All
Thank you,
right.
guys.
Bye-bye.
All right, see y'all.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Elliot, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hey,
Thanks,
Gary,
everyone.
can you make sure you send the board those 2 PowerPoints?
Absolutely, sir. No
Okay.
problem.
Thank
Will do.
you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Sure.